This situation keeps getting crazier. As following Matthew Knies taking a brutal hit in yesterday night's game against the Vegas Golden Knights, we had players and coaches alike speaking out on the hit. And what Craig Berube had to say might shock you. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, as well as multiple injury updates ahead of Sunday night's game against Utah. Stay tuned for all that. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, about 71% aren't subscribed. We are extremely close to 14,000 subscribers. It's been a goal of ours for a while. So if you're enjoying the daily Leafs videos, the post-game streams after every game, hit that button. Darius, a lot to go over today, and there's more news to discuss. Obviously, we had a video earlier today discussing some trade targets, but now we have some more injury updates. We have the coaches speaking out, and they had some media availability today following the Matthew Knies hit, which was quite frankly a little bit interesting. And one of the comments by Craig Berube is a little bit surprising, but let's dive into a bunch of different things. But let's start with just the way the Leafs have been playing, and that's winning hockey. That's the way we're trending. And at this moment, the Leafs are playing very good. We know that. They've secured, at the time of recording, first in the Atlantic. Might change depending on the outcome of Florida's game tonight. However, I want to talk on a couple things. And Craig Berube spoke out on the White Cloud hit on Knies. He said, it's a hockey hit. It's a hockey hit, sorry. It's been around forever. It's a clean hit. It's a tough play. He's in a vulnerable position a little bit. The guy was on him from behind, and it's a tough play, but it's hockey. That's part of the game. This has fans a little bit fired up. I don't think it was a clean hit. Craig Berube does think it was a clean hit. Whether or not you believe it's a clean hit, it's an interesting comment by Craig Berube, and Benoit also had some comments to dive into here, but I want to get your thoughts on this, Darius. Berube thinks it's a clean hit. If you saw our stream yesterday, we both obviously don't. He left his feet, made contact to the head first, but I can understand the premise of what he's saying, at least.
Yeah, well, I want to clarify too and say that I don't think it was a clean hit, but I don't think it was dirty or
Agreed.
malicious either, but it was a dangerous and reckless hit. And I have no idea what, most of the analysts are saying today and even last night after the game. When we're watching the clips, we have access to the clips. We can see the clips, and people are saying that, he didn't leave his feet and that the principal point of contact was the chest, which it just wasn't. If you watch the replays, which we did on stream last night, over and over and over again, it just wasn't. Those two things are just not true. The other thing that isn't true is this narrative that Matthew Knies did not have his head up. He did the entire way, except for maybe a split second when he looked down at the puck, but he knew that he was going to get hit. I just don't think that he knew he was going to get hit in the head. So it's a head hit. The player left his feet. It's a dangerous hit, and I think you should expect somebody to jump in, obviously, because Knies has been one of their best players. He's also one of their younger players, so I think you should expect somebody to jump in. But I understand what Berube is saying, that, of course, it wasn't dirty, but to say that it was like a clean hit and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it, I think is a bit absurd. The player leaves his feet. Knies gets hit in the head. It's a dangerous hit. It's pretty reckless. It's the stuff that you want out of the game. It is different from the Reeves one. I won't compare it to that, but I do think that it should have got a 5-minute major. I'm not sure about a suspension, but I think that the refs in that situation need to know a little bit better, especially if they're experienced in the league, that you need to send that guy off or else the game's going to get a little bit out of hand. So I understand what Berube is trying to say, but I disagree a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it warranted a suspension necessarily. And I also think that this hit wasn't quite as bad as the Ryan Reeves one. However, I do also think it was a dirty hit. Not necessarily not a dirty hit, but a penalty at least, a 5-minute major. So
Sure.
I don't know. It's interesting. And leave in the comment section down below what your kind of thoughts were on the hit. Again, we had a stream talking about it, but if you weren't in the stream, or even if you were, let us know, because I'm a bit surprised Berube said this. That being said, we all know Craig Berube is not surprised or not shy, of telling the truth, telling it how he feels it is. And I guess after watching the footage, he came to this conclusion, which is fair enough. But Simon Benoit kind of said the other thing. He was asked about confronting Zach Whitecloud after the Knies hit, and he said, I think his feet were off the ice when he hit Knies in the head. Or Knies in the head, Kniesy in the head. So I had to go in there and just protect my teammates. It was just not a good hit. I don't think it's a good call. I tend to agree. I think Benoit here is definitely, this is kind of how I'm feeling. I mean, he left the ice. He hit Knies in the head. And also, I just don't know if it was a smart thing to do. If he didn't leave his feet, the hit and the point of contact, the principal point of contact would have been the chest in all likelihood, or maybe the shoulder area if he didn't leave his feet. But by leaving the feet, he got himself higher to hit Knies in the head. So again, it's going to be a big point of talking, I'm sure, surrounding, the commissioner and the safety department and all these different things, Pere. But I liked what Benoit did, and it was a great game for him to be there, and a pretty ironic game for Ryan Reeves to miss.
Yeah, pretty ironic. I do think, and we talked about it on stream, so I don't want to get into it too much in this video, but I do think some of this doesn't happen if Ryan Reeves is in the lineup, because he is the diffuser in a way, because they know other teams this is, that they're going to have to answer to him. And I know people think that's ridiculous because he hasn't fought yet this year, but it is true. You need a guy like that in the lineup sometimes. I do think that there is use in NHL lineups for guys like that. But yeah, Benoit, we've been on the Benoit train forever. Love this player. Love that he stands up for his teammates in situations like this. And I think he's right. Again, I think it's a dangerous, reckless hit. It is. He leaves his feet. He gets him in the head. Is it dirty? I don't know if I would go as far as to say it was malicious or dirty. The elbow was tucked as well. There's no elbow to the head, as some people were saying. It's not, but it's a head hit. He gets him up high. And I wouldn't say that the principal point of contact was the chest, because the first thing that he hits is Knies' head. So yeah, it's a bit reckless. And I'm glad that Benoit jumped in. And I know a lot of people, after every big hit now in the NHL, guys jump in. But when it's one as reckless and as bad as that looked, then you know what? I think Benoit has a case here.
Yep. And for, of course, the Leafs' up-and-coming star, really, in Matthew Knies. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But regarding the upcoming game and kind of Berube's plan going forward, he said with so many forwards hurt, Leafs have contemplated dressing 7 defensemen. Berube notes he's done it in the past quite a bit, but the 7 defensemen gets a little tricky. They get out of sync a little bit. Benoit earned a rave review from play last night. Hakanpää was scratched versus Vegas. And yeah, I mean, we discussed it again in the stream, not to keep bringing it up, but Benoit played very, very well, and Berube spoke highly of Benoit. We saw him throw 4 hits, I believe, in the first period. I think he finished with 7 hits. I recall, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it was 7 hits. He looked like a beast out there, and he looked like the Benoit we saw last season that earned him that 2-year contract. And I think a lot of it has to do with the competition aspect. If you're Simon Benoit and you're watching yourself get scratched 2 games in a row, you have to be itching and clawing at the bit to get in and finally being able to play again. And I don't know if he's going to, I think he earned himself another game against Utah on Sunday, but we'll see what happens with Jani Hakanpää, because Hakanpää hasn't looked great, and we'll ultimately see what happens with him. But great, game from him, and ultimately 7 defensemen is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, that, if you're scratched for 2 games in a row, you know that you got to make some type of an impact. And I think he did that, besides the hit and jumping in there. I think that he had a really good game otherwise, and he was playing very physical and asserting himself into the game. And I think the Leafs are going to experiment with some things. I can see Hakanpää coming back into the lineup very soon, and maybe Connor Timmins comes out, because Benoit has that fire lit under him now. So I could see that happening. I could see Benoit coming out again. They got extra guys for this reason, to kind of play with things. But going to 7 defensemen, I think Berube is right in that way, that guys can get kind of out of sync and ice times can get kind of whacked. So maybe don't do that. Maybe give another Marley a chance, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Knies. I assume he's going to play. It seems like he's okay. I assume he's going to play on Sunday, but we don't know for sure. And maybe you give another Marley a look, like I mentioned, and maybe, I don't know if the salary cap would allow for it. It could end up being a bit of a mess, but maybe you sign Alex Nylander to an NHL deal and get him up, because he's been playing fantastic. I don't know if he has a spot on this team when everyone's healthy, but the fact that a lot of people are injured, I would love to see what he could do with some ice time on the Leafs. But I think that's a little far away right now. But we'll see what happens with Knies, and if he's able to play Sunday, and hopefully he is, because they said that he is progressing.
Yeah, and shout out to Steven Lorentz again. Phenomenal game from him as well. And one quick thing before I wrap up, a couple of updates on the injury front here. Not bad. He's still being evaluated and looked at, but actually feeling okay, which is good news, which is obviously something which we love to see. Steven Lorentz, but it was interesting. Ultimately, the hit, it looked rough. He looked a little bit worried he was going to get injured. He should be good to go. And again, a tough play. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, to go back to, I want to go to the Lorentz thing before we wrap up, just because he actually mentioned Tim Brent in this quote in the media. And I thought that was hilarious. This guy has the passion. He grew up a Leafs fan. The fact that he mentioned and knows Tim Brent, and he had a Tim Brent moment there last night, just like when Tim Brent had it, I think like 14 years ago or whatever it was, against the Carolina Hurricanes. That's awesome that he mentioned that. So that this guy definitely has the passion. He wants to win here. So I wanted to mention that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Shout out to Steven Lorentz. He's kind of been the unsung hero for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know what your thoughts are on this. Your thoughts are on a lot of these Craig Berube updates and his comments. And thank you again for your guys' continued support. See you in tomorrow's video.